Hey guys, and welcome back to Genshin Interact. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the recent speculation that's been going around in the Genshin community, and that is the possibility of being able to level our characters up to level 100. And, this being kind of the main new change with Natlan. You know how every region's basically got like a major new mechanic. With Sumeru, it was basically just Dendro, and that's a big deal, right? A whole new element to kind of work with in the characters and whatnot. And with Fontaine, the whole HP changing mechanics. We also had Bond of Life later on with a lot of these characters. Arlecchino, we're still waiting on Cloran and Siegewin. So that's been pretty interesting. But for Natlan, so far, it's looking like the level increase. So for me personally, when I look at this, I do have some concerns about it. But I think there also can be a lot said about what this can mean for the characters in the game, but also I think there can be a lot said about even the player base, and I think there's going to be a lot of mixed opinions on this one, to be honest. So I don't know, Vixen, what are some of your initial thoughts when I guess we saw this?
Well, I guess I'll kind of lay everything out as, the multiple things that at least went through my mind when I was looking at it and kind of my initial thoughts. And then we can kind of break down through each section, kind of what our thoughts were. What I kind of thought at first was, okay, this is kind of great. I thought, as soon as something like this kind of comes out, there's an immediate excitement for something new, something different, something that's kind of a good change that you feel like is going to be a good change. Higher increase in level, you're immediately thinking of your characters that base off of elemental mastery. Characters that ascend into elemental mastery are going to do a lot better. In general, characters like Kuki and Toma, who do Hyperbloom and Burgeon respectively, are going to be kind of really good characters, and even further than they already are, because elemental mastery and level are going to be the two main factors that are increasing damage for Hyperbloom and Burgeon. And so right. Stuff like that is the kind of thing that is going on in our minds. That's okay. This is really, really good for certain characters. Mm-hmm. Characters that go into damage bonus. It's like, oh wow, that's crazy good. Crit rate and crit damage characters who, that's going to make ratios a lot easier to deal with. Maybe if there's a bigger jump to go to 100. But like you said, Rift, there's always that other side of things, right? So, okay, well, what does that mean for bosses? What does that mean for fights? Does that mean that we're going to have another world level? Does that mean they're going to add another quest of some sort that we have to do to get to the next world level?
Yeah.
Is it going to be to the point where, earlier game characters, is it going to be harder for them now to get to a new quote-unquote end game that has kind of changed? And I don't think it's necessarily going to be an end game, but my point is it going to be harder to get to maxing out your characters, quote-unquote, now to this level 100? It's already takes, I believe, 172, 142, one of the two. I think 172 Heroes Wit to get a character from level 80 to level 90.
Right.
What's the jump going to mean for material-wise? What does that mean for Ascension materials? Those normal materials that it's kind of easy for us to get, those golds, Azurite materials or whatever, what is that going to look like for us? There's so many, like you said, there's good sides to it where you're like, more damage for my characters, but then there's other sides to it where you're like, the bosses are going to be harder. Is this going to mess with the Abyss? Is this going to mean that, when I go into the Abyss, instead of seeing a level 100 at the 12-3, am I going to see a level 110, 115 to make this more difficult for 4 characters at level 100?
Yeah, I think you bring up a lot of great points that I kind of want to at least briefly address all of them, really. Talking about the ascensions for characters, like going from 90 out of 90 to now 90 out of 100, what is that going to be? Because now it's right now it's like going from 80 to 90, it's taking like 6 gemstones. What is it going to be next? 8, 10, or is it just going to double it? 12? Like, that's a lot, and I mean a lot of resources just for one character. It's going to make it very difficult to level multiple characters to the max, at least. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out, because with the new level increase, if this is true, what is that going to look like for endgame content? We actually had a video several months ago addressing there were potential rumors about new endgame content, right? And we even covered the idea of a new Abyss. So if they are going to add a new Abyss or something like that, or just add on to what we already have, maybe like new floors like floor 13, 14, etc., do you think that would make sense because we're getting higher levels? So now these extra floors, essentially extra content and also extra rewards, which is nice, that's where they can just put the higher level enemies?
I definitely think so, because at that point in time when we had heard of floor 13 and 14, I think a lot of us scoffed at it. They're like, okay, let's be honest. A lot of people are struggling, even veterans sometimes, to get to a point where, sometimes the Abyss is just a pain in the butt to even 36 star sometimes, even for veteran players that have very well built accounts.
Yeah, we saw that in the last video.
Right, exactly. The last video was a little bit rough, but even sometimes for us, it is a little difficult. With all the time and effort that we've put into the game, we can actually still 36 star it. Whereas people who maybe aren't fully invested into it like we are, what happens when they can't 36 star? They don't get as well of a reward because they don't live and breathe Genshin and they don't have a content creation idea behind it. What does that mean for them? So I think a lot of questions are going to arise. And beforehand, we didn't think that was going to work, because it's like, well, our characters are capped at 90. Going against a level 120, whatever the recent boss is going to be, it was unheard of. But now that you have the level 100s of characters and the possible, base attack increases for Bennett's, the possible extra crit rate for characters, extra crit damage for characters, that kind of starts to change your mindset of, okay, now can that actually might work. This additional content, they could do both. They could add a new Abyss and add on to the current Abyss, because that's kind of what we've gotten.
Yeah, there's really a lot when you're talking about all these ascension stats on characters, because I don't think a lot of people realize just how much of an increase or just how much of a jump you get from that last ascension. I kind of wanted to park on the idea of Hyperbloom Burgeon, and even at the beginning of the game, people did talk about the Anemo characters, like, hey, you need to make sure you're leveling your Anemo characters to 90. You can leave everyone else at 80 or whatever, but get those Anemo characters to 90, because the swirl damage is impacted by the level of the character and their EM. And it's the same thing with Hyperbloom and Burgeon. I think Dendro just kind of, emphasized it a little bit more, and people started to realize, oh yeah, this is actually very important to think about. Like, the difference in damage you get out of having your Kuki from level 80 to level 90 for the Hyperbloom hits, it's like double the damage. I think like a level 80 Kuki typically hits Hyperblooms of about just under 20k, or peaking just over 20k based on characters, just the makeup of the team. Whereas a level 90 Kuki is easily going over 30k, right? So, I mean, and that's a huge difference. That's a 50% increase. So, I mean, just think about that. And then now going with your level 90 Kuki to level 100, what are we talking about there? 45,000? I mean, because I think that's possible, and that's a massive increase that's well worth the leveling, even if it is a lot of extra investment with, with like the Hero's Wit, just that last ascension in general. So I think there's just a lot to think about. And then there's also the HP scaling characters, where, it's people talk about how it's more important to get those characters leveled, because raising that base HP stat is just very valuable. So I don't know, what's your take on that?
Well, yeah, I totally think characters like Neuvillette, for instance. I mean, never mind the extra ascension. I think his ascension is crit damage. I'm pretty sure of it. So, 38.4% over 90 levels. Do you add another 10% to that? Does he get another 10%? I mean, he already has a crazy amount of crit damage. Never mind a really good, ability in general where he's using a 4-piece Marechaussee. I mean, that's just going to make him more cracked. But never mind just the ascension. But like you're talking about, the actual stats themselves, besides the crit damage and all this extra bonus stuff, is that going to change his HP increase? He could have still a really good crit ratio and also have 50,000 HP at this point, and it just all depends on what's going to work. Does that mean also weapons are going to change? That's something else I've wanted to bring up. Are weapons going to increase? I don't necessarily know or think that they're going to do that to artifacts, but my biggest thing is, we've only seen...
Please don't touch the artifacts. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
the
imagine.
RNG just getting worse. No, please, no.
But also, if you think about it, right? Kind of put this into your mind for a second. If you go look at the talents in a character, the max is level 10. And if you C6 a character, any character, it's plus 3 to 2 out of 3 of their normal tech, skill, and burst talents. 1 or 2 out of 3 of those are going to be increased. That's 13. You have characters like Child, for instance, or Tartaglia, that have a +1 already, no matter what, into the kit. So I think he can max out to a 14.
Yeah.
Is this level 90 to 100 planned long ago? I think so, because we have a level 15 talent that wasn't able to be done before.
That is true.
And now
Yeah.
we're able to do it. Because if you
Yeah.
notice in the character, you can go up to 15. And we always thought, for me, I always thought, well, that's kind of stupid because the max is 13. And then I remembered, wait a minute, child has a +1. And I was like, wait a minute, but there's no character with a +2 or whatever. There's only characters with +1. I think there's somebody else that has a +1 in their kit as well. But I mean, that's kind of interesting because that means talents. I mean, talents are a huge part. You know, one of our friends that was started Genshin a while ago, she had never really she had done all these other things, and she was like, why are my characters not doing any damage? Well, I took a look at her account and I realized her talents were all level 1, and I was like, well, okay, well, here's half your problem. You know, your talents aren't there at all. And I was like, and then she did that, and all of a sudden she was able to clear stuff. And you know, we already know the difference between 8 and 9 and 9 to 10 on talent increases.
Right.
What's that going to do from a 10 to a 10 to an 11, you know, for a normal character? Do we have to use another crown?
It starts to really get exponential, and that's why, you know, to your point, I think the level increase is going to be a lot. It's going to have a lot more of an impact than I think people are even giving it or even realizing. I mean, like I was mentioning earlier, you know, things that where the level of the character really matters. I think it's going to be really good and really powerful. So I think with the idea of new or more endgame content, like more abyss floors or a new abyss altogether that has been talked about, you know, a month ago or so, I think with this also coming out as a speculation, it's starting to kind of like make sense that maybe in Natland we will have more content like that.
Yeah, I'm totally excited to see what's going to happen. I definitely think it's going to be a learning curve, and this is something maybe they probably have, you know, kept in mind, because maybe they were waiting for a lot of veteran players to kind of get to a point where it's 5.0 and they've been playing for years at this point, 4 years. Are they going to, by the time 5.0 comes out, are they going to, you know, have everything built and have all these things where they're just waiting for the next character and they're kind of bored until their next character comes out? And they're waiting until these veteran players have 30, 40, 50, whatever characters on their account that are quote unquote maxed out. And then all of a sudden, now they have to hyper invest them all again, whether that's talents and level, but at least level we're seeing right now. And so this could be something that we kind of see in the future. Is this going to change? You know, this could be something they've kind of kept in mind to be like, well, we want people to, you know, kind of have to actually work for it, you know, because at this point now you have to work on, if you've got, you know, at least like 25 characters that you like and constantly rotate through, you know, if you're a veteran player and you have so many characters and you just like even just 10 to 15 characters, let's just say 10, let's just honestly max it out to just 10. Still, building 10 characters,
that's a lot,
to level 100 is going to take so much time. At least for, like, you know, even if you have a good stack of heroes, wit, and whatnot, you know, if you were, you know, a lower level player and getting to 100, that's going to be a pain in the butt. Never mind, you know, making sure everything works out. You know, never mind if this does change weapon level or talent level as well.
Yeah, even if you're like me and you do the abominable act of spending Primogems to get more resin every day, that's still a lot, just thinking about it. So, like, like you're saying, to your point, I think it's just a lot more for those veteran players to at least have to do. One thing I did want to talk about, at least briefly, was I know that there's going to be a group of people out there that see this as a negative thing. And I do have my initial concerns as well. And I wanted to address that a little bit here. So for new players specifically, is this going to be something that might just be too much or take too long to get to the end game content? Because as it is right now, I think I can safely say, as if you're a new player and you're completely free to play, not a single dollar spent, I'd say it takes about 8 months to a year to get to the end of the abyss. So if you're increasing the level cap and also adding more content potentially, do you think that's worse for new players or better?
I think it honestly depends, because there's two ways to look at it, right? You've got your people that are hardcore, you know, RPG players, you know, RPG fans. They love RPGs, they love to grind, they love the idea to sit down and, you know, flood hours and hours into a game, and that is something that a lot of us enjoy, taking our time to basically make the pinnacle of one game, and then move on to the next one. Instead of jumping around between 30 to 40 of them over a few year span, we like to sit on 1 to 2 that we heavily invest into and then have a few sprinkled off on the side that we really don't pay attention to. So I think for those people, it's still going to be good. I think new players jumping into Genshin, it's going to still be a climb and a half to get to, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be a pain because, for instance, right now, looking at the characters, there's so many people that still have characters 80 out of 80, 80 out of 90, and are still clearing the BIS 36 starring it. And there are so many people
clearing. And I'm one of those people.
Right, and they are clearing, and doing just fine. And so I think at the end of the day, it kind of just depends because the 80 is going to become the new 90, the 90 is going to become the new 100, or the 100 is going to become the new 90, and the 90 is going to become the new 80, sorry. So at this point, I think it's going to be kind of just depending on the person. I think it's going to kind of narrow the gate of Genshin players and Genshin fans. Are they going to actually enjoy this change? I think is going to be up to the person. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be a very widespread answer that I think either of us could answer, but I don't know. What are your thoughts, Rift?
I mean, honestly, that's kind of where I tend to lean on the whole take of it. Just is this a good or a bad thing in general? What does this mean for Genshin? Basically what you said, I would agree with. Now, I will say, if this is the only major change with 5.0 and Natlan in general, like this is the only mechanical change to the game, I'm going to be left there kind of like, that's it? Like, okay, just... All right, so there's really nothing new. You just kind of beefed everything up, including the playable characters. What's actually going to be new about the combat system, or maybe just something actually mechanically new to the game, right? So I know that's going to be some people's issue with it, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I see it as almost a no better time than now, or whenever they maybe try to open up a new area in Mondstadt, I don't see a better time than 5.0 or that point in time to add a new, add more reactions maybe with Geo, or add a Geo and an Anemo reaction that are together. I think it may not be... I think people are going to misunderstand this and be like, oh, you just want new things and think it's going to make the game better. I don't think it's going to make the game better. But if people are looking for something new, that could be the new thing.
Right.
Okay, here are these 2-3 new reactions that are going to be good and we think are going to be useful. Maybe some sort of withering effect of some sort that's going to be like on like a Geo or like an eroded effect.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Anemo and Geo, and it's slowly
kind of like a
decreases,
poison effect
bleed.
or like damage over time.
Yeah,
that'd be kind of
exactly.
cool.
So there might be something that's cool like that, but I don't think that I don't know. They could be doing so many new things. I think at the end of the day, we have the base game, and asking for a lot of the developers might be too much. If we're just asking for them to basically change the game, a lot of people ask for what's a new function. I want something just new, and it's like, that is true. But they're coming out with new kits. They're coming out with new characters. I don't think the game really needs to change too much from where it is right now. That's just my own personal thought as well, and I know that's not really a popular opinion, but the game is what it is, and the new characters are going to change the meta and change the game already as it is.
All right, well, I think that about covers all of the stuff we wanted to talk about in this video. It's definitely very exciting. Just let us know what your thoughts on this are in the comments. We'd love to read through those and see what you guys think about this. Also, make sure to like and subscribe if you did enjoy the content, and check out our Discord server where you can come and talk with a lot of like-minded people. We have a lot of awesome people in there that you guys would love. With all that out of the way, we'll see you in the next one.